guys, welcome back to my channel. Had to take me a little mental break, but I am back. If you have not already done so, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and become a part of the family. The story I want to share with you today is about Carly Madison Gregg. Carly Madison Gregg was a student at Northwest Rankin High School in Flowood, Mississippi, where her mother was an algebra teacher. Carly was gifted, bright, intelligent, and was named Student of the Month and Year prior to the incident I'm going to share with you today. When Carly was 13, she scored a 30 on her ACT test. She was an exceptional student who had skipped the third grade, which made her a sophomore in high school, and she had no prior history of violence. Why am I talking about Carly? On March 19, 2024, Carly, who was 14 at the time of her offenses, shot and killed her mother, 40-year-old Ashley Smylie, and attempted to murder her 39-year-old stepfather, Heath Smylie, at the family's home. Carly pleaded not guilty, and in August 2024, she rejected a plea deal that would have put her behind bars for 40 years. When officers arrived at the home, they found Ashley Smylie dead and her husband Heath Smylie with a gunshot wound to the shoulder.
Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office!
What's your son's wearing? Hey, I need you to talk to me. What is your son wearing?
He was in jeans and a grayish t-shirt. She's got short, brownish hair.
So, jeans, a gray t-shirt, short brown hair.
She ran into the backyard. I tried to follow her. She jumped the fence and ran. She shot me in the neck. It's okay, I
Does she
think.
still have the gun?
It's on the kitchen counter. I think there's one live round left in it. I opened the cylinder. I went in the back door. She tried to shoot me.
Ashley was a loving mother whose world revolved around Carly. Carly was the love of her mother's life. Ashley was overprotective, in large part because she already lost one child, a daughter who died from a health condition years prior. Ashley frequently worried that Carly was going to end up with the same mental illness as her dad because they were hereditary. Throughout the trial, Carly's defense team focused on her mental health issues, attempting to set up an insanity defense. An insanity defense requires proof that a criminal defendant did not understand the nature of the crime committed and cannot distinguish right from wrong. In Mississippi, defendants can be acquitted on the grounds of insanity if it's demonstrated that they were unable to understand the severity or impact of their actions.
This is not a whodunit case. We know who took action on March 19th to bring about the death of Ashley Smylie and the injuries to Heath Smylie. However, this is a why case. Why did it happen? Why did this exceptional child with no history of violence, who was loved by her friends, her teachers, her parents, who had a good home life, who loved her mother, why did she shoot her mom? Why did she shoot at her stepfather? The state would like you to believe the answer to those questions don't matter, but we know better than that. The answers to those questions is why we're here today, and it's what you're here to do. We believe the evidence will show that there were 3 victims on March 19th: Ashley Smylie, Heath Smylie, and Carly Smylie. And Carly Gregg, that they were all 3 victims. We believe the evidence will show that Carly had been suffering from a mental illness, that Carly was not aware on March 19th that she had a mental illness. We believe the evidence will show that Carly's parents, who lived with her, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness. We believe the evidence will show that Carly's close friends, who saw her at school every day, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness, because it's hard to look at a person and understand that they have a mental illness. It's hard to look at a person and know that they have a mental illness. That's why it's often referred to as the invisible disease. A person can exhibit symptoms of a mental illness without people necessarily knowing that they have one, or other people necessarily knowing that's what another person has. While the events on March 19th were tragic, the events on March 19th were not intentional. The evidence will show, and the testimony will show, that Carly Gregg loved her mother. That Carly Gregg and her mother had a loving, close relationship. Carly Gregg's mom loved her. In fact, her life revolved around Carly, as parents' lives often do revolve around their children. Carly very much wanted to please her mother. Carly was an exceptional student, made a 30 on the ACT when she was 13 years old. She was the apple of her mother and her stepfather's eye. And you will understand by the conclusion of this hearing why Carly's stepfather is still supporting her and standing behind her. Because he knows on March 19th, there were 3 victims: Ashley, Heath, and Carly.
The prosecution sought to prove that Carly knew what she was doing and knew that she was wrong.
We're here because on March the 19th, 2024, Carly rode to school with her mother that day. Ashley was a school teacher at Northwest Rankin, taught geometry. Carly was in the 10th grade. You'll hear that morning she got in a little altercation with one of her friends, cussed him out. But what you'll hear, ladies and gentlemen, from the testimony of this friend is that he was so worried about Carly's use of smoking marijuana, and so worried about her being high, and so worried about her having these burner phones that her mom didn't know about, that he felt compelled to tell Miss Ashley Smylie that day. Ladies and gentlemen, after the incident with Carly that morning, you'll hear that he gets in touch with another friend, and he's like, hey, you got to keep her distracted so I can go tell Miss Smylie what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, this friend cared about Carly. He was like, I gotta intervene. I gotta tell her. I'm afraid of what's happening. You'll hear from him that he did in fact tell Miss Smylie. That after 4th block that day, he goes and he tells Miss Smylie, hey, Carly has got these vapes. She's got this phone. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear then that Carly Gregg rides in the car home with her mother from school to their house. They leave school sometime after 3:30. They get home a little before 4. You'll hear that when they get inside the house, it's only their 2 dogs, Ashley Smylie and Carly Gregg. Immediately, Carly goes and lets the dogs out. You'll hear testimony that Ashley then goes into Carly's room. You'll hear that while Ashley is in her room, that Carly's still outside. At some point, Ashley finds what law enforcement believe to be the 4 boxes that contain vape pens. Testimony will be that we believe she carried them from Carly's room to her bedroom, went back to search in Carly's room. The evidence will show that almost immediately upon Carly coming inside the house, that she walks straight to her parents' bedroom, that she goes straight to her mom's side of the bed and removes a .357 Magnum from under the mattress. We believe the testimony will be that then she concealed that .357 Magnum behind her back as she walked through the kitchen, peeks her head around the kitchen to make sure that her mom hasn't come out of her bedroom. We believe the evidence will then show that she walked with that .357 Magnum behind her back, walked in to her own bedroom and then fired 3 shots into her mother. Killing her. We believe the testimony will then be that very moment after she shot and killed her mother, she then hides that gun back out of the camera, walks back into that kitchen, sits down on a stool with a gun behind her, picks up her mother's cell phone, puts her mom's passcode into the phone. We believe the testimony will be that then she texts her stepdad and said something to the effect of, "When will you be home, honey?" Testimony will be that then she waited for him to respond. "I'll be a little bit longer." She sends him a thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe the testimony will then be that after she puts the phone back down and walks out of sight with the camera, that between the next 45 minutes or so, that the defendant reaches out to or attempts to reach out to about 5 or 6 of her friends. Some were FaceTime, some were text messages. We believe the evidence will show that during this time, she was asking them all for help, trying to get them to come over to her house. She wouldn't tell them why. We believe that one of them's going to say he even offered to call 911, and she told him no. The evidence will also be that one of these friends did in fact come over to help Carly that day. She didn't know why, but she knew that her friend needed help, and she went to that home. We believe the evidence will show that when that friend arrived at Carly's house, that Carly walked to the front door, asked her, "Are you squeamish around dead bodies?" We believe the evidence will show that then she took that friend and showed her her dead mother laying on the floor. We believe the evidence will show that after that, she says, "I put 3 in my mom, and I got 3 more waiting for my stepdad when he gets home." We believe the evidence will show that then she tells this friend, "Hey, why don't you go wait outside in the backyard? My stepdad's about to be home." This friend will testify that she does go in the backyard and she hears gunshots. And the next thing she sees is Carly coming out of the back door. We believe the testimony will be that she fell down coming out of the back door, gets up and tells her to run. And these 2 individuals, this friend and Carly, jump over the fence and run separate directions. You'll hear testimony that there was a 911 call. You'll hear a frantic Heath Smylie telling the dispatcher, "Oh my God, she's killed her mother. She hit me in the neck, it grazed me, she tried to kill me too, she's run off." You'll hear from law enforcement when they arrived on the scene that Carly Gregg had fled the scene. You'll hear from law enforcement that when they arrived on the scene, Ashley Smylie was very much dead in the floor in Carly's bedroom, and that they found that Heath Smylie had been shot and hit in the shoulder, through and through. You will hear from law enforcement that sometime after the day of the event, they learned that there was cameras involved, that this home had surveillance video. You'll learn that one of those videos was turned over by the living victim, Heath Smylie, and it shows Carly Gregg and her friend jumping over the fence. And then you'll learn that there was another camera in the house on March the 19th, 2024. That camera was in the kitchen, and that's the camera that Carly was hiding the gun out of sight of. And you'll hear that that camera was not in the kitchen when law enforcement got there, and it was not in the kitchen where it should have been when Heath Smylie got there. It wasn't until sometime later that that camera was discovered. Ladies and gentlemen, you will hear that Ashley Smylie's cause of death, gunshot wounds to the head. Ashley Smylie's manner of death, homicide. You will hear that Heath Smylie says Carly Gregg is the one that shot at me. And on his 911 call, he said that she tried to kill him. You'll hear him say that he did not move that camera, the only other person living in the home. Ladies and gentlemen, you also hear from forensic scientists from the Mississippi Forensics Laboratory. You'll hear that both of Carly Gregg's hands tested positive for gunshot residue, both the right and the left. You'll hear that the .357 Magnum that was used to kill her mother and shoot her stepfather, they took swabs. They took a swab of the trigger, and they took a swab of the hammer. And you will hear that the DNA profile that matches those swabs belongs to Carly Gregg. Ladies and gentlemen, you will also hear that there were 2 projectiles removed from Carly Gregg's mother, Ashley Smylie. One in her brain, one in her neck. And that those projectiles were tested with ballistics, and that those projectiles matched the .357 Magnum that Heath Smylie took out of Carly Gregg's hand that day on March the 19th, 2024. And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this trial, after you've heard the evidence, the state will stand before you, and we will ask that you find Carly Gregg guilty of murder, attempted murder, and tampering with physical evidence.
Carly was located a short distance from her home on the side of the road.
Let me step out real quick for me. Alright. Hey, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over around to the front of you, okay? I'm going to move the handcuffs around to the front of you. Okay. Alright. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to swab your hands, okay? Right. Now, we'll ask you a bunch of questions, but obviously you fired with a pistol, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Alright, look. I need you to hold your hand out like this. I'm going to do your right hand first, okay? That's your right hand. Just like that.
Swab up here.
What is this?
It's a GSR. It shows which hand did you shoot with?
Okay.
Which hand did you shoot with?
I'm gonna go up.
Flop the hand, turn the hand over,
Turn it over.
and rub on the outside part around the knuckles.
Where do you want his phone? I guess you can put it in my vehicle with my key. The key fob is in my left pocket.
All right, now so go ahead and take it. All right.
Is my stepdad okay? I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you about this. Are you okay? Yeah.
Psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Clark testified for the defense, stating that Carly was facing a mental health crisis on the day she shot her mom, and that her significant mood swings were made worse by her medications, as she was hearing voices and having dissociative problems. Dr. Clark stated that she was having mood issues, eating disorder issues, cutting herself, hearing voices, and sleeping problems, all leading up to January of 2020. Carly said her memory went blank during the shooting, and the next thing she remembers is when the deputy picked her up. Dr. Andrew Clark concluded that Carly suffered from bipolar disorder. On March 12th, just days before the shooting, Carly had been put on new medication, which she said made her symptoms worse. Her medication was switched from Zoloft to Lexapro a week before the incident, but Dr. Clark says she didn't make the switch properly. Olivia Leber, psychiatrist, mental health nurse practitioner, who had treated Carly 3 times between January and March at Precise Mind, a mental health clinic in Madison. Leber said she had treated Carly twice on telehealth and once in person during the time she was under her care. During that time, she had prescribed Zoloft for major depressive disorder, and when Carly said it made her feel like a zombie, Leber changed the prescription to Lexapro 1 week before Ashley was killed. Under questioning, Leber said Carly had never claimed to hear voices, nor had she claimed suicide or homicide thoughts. She also said neither Carly nor her mother ever reported memory loss dissociation, or derealization. Lexapro, Leber said, does not cause homicidal thoughts, but it does cause suicidal thoughts. Also called to the stand was Rebecca Kerr, a licensed professional counselor and owner of Magnolia Counseling in Madison, who saw Carly every week for 9 sessions. On the treatment date of March 18, the last time Kirk saw her, Carly was completely normal. Kirk said she didn't report any hallucinations or delusions, nor did she report memory or concentration issues at the time. Kurt said she was starting to wonder if she was serving Carly the best she could, wondering if the sessions were actually making a difference since most of her discussions were about school. Kurt stated that almost every one of her clients have anxiety and depression, and that only Carly had gone on to kill their mother. She had also had patients who had heard voices, and none of them had killed their mother. The prosecution's expert witness was psychiatrist Dr. Jason Pickett. He claimed Carly was not insane when she shot her mother and knew what her actions would do. Now, Heath Smylie did take the stand during Carly's trial. Toward the end of his time on the stand, he said that he and Carly had talked every day since he asked his attorney to get a no-contact order released between them. Their conversations have mostly been conducted over the phone as Carly has been in solitary confinement at the Rankin County Jail. He still believes that Carly did not recognize him and that something was off. When asked by the prosecution, he said neither he nor Ashley were ever scared of Carly. To this day, he said he's still not scared of his stepdaughter.
You have this gun, afraid that maybe there's somebody else in the house. You said, I believe that you tried to call Ashley.
Yes.
Did she answer?
No.
Did you find her phone?
Found her phone. It was on a counter in our living room.
Was there a second phone beside it?
Yes.
Did you recognize the other phone?
I didn't really stop to look.
So you realize that Ashley's phone is there. Walk us through what happened next, Heath.
Checked our bedroom, bathroom, closet, other side of the bed, under the desk in there, and turned and started looking, going towards the other end of the house, and I glanced in our spare little third bedroom, and then turned and went into Carly's room, and that's where I found Ashley.
When you found Ashley, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen what you saw?
She was laying on her back and had her hands kind of across her, and a towel over her face.
Do you remember what color the towel was?
I do not.
When you saw her laying there, what's the very next thing that you did?
Checked her pulse, see, and kind of moved the towel, and then called 911.
And Heath, when you moved the towel, what did you see?
I knew she had been shot. There was blood around, but I don't really recall exactly where. Somewhere in the right side of her face there.
You said you called 911.
Yes.
What did you tell the 911 operator had happened?
I tried to immediately tell him I needed the police out, that my wife had been killed and I had been shot.
Do you remember telling them who had shot you?
I assume I said Carly on there, but I don't remember exact details.
Do you recall telling the 911 operator that, oh my God, she's killed her mother too?
I don't recall saying that, but it's very possible, I guess.
At that point, Heath, did you think that Carly was the one that had killed her mother?
I didn't know what was going on at that point. I kind of went into shock there.
Carly spoke with great hatred about people she didn't like, and she talked about how she didn't like her mom. Friends and classmates say Carly often talked of killing her mom. She was acting normal on the day she shot her mom and stepfather, but she had always been saying things about how she hated her mom, one classmate stated. Classmates also stated that Carly said a lot of alarming things, but people never took her seriously because she never did anything to act on them before. She said things like, I'm going to kill her, talking about her mother. But the teenager's ways, which in hindsight to everyone now were red flags that they didn't see. Nobody raised concerns because she had always been that way. It always sounded like venting, they said. Carly also frequently claimed to friends that she was abused at home, but there is no evidence to support her allegations, and police cleared her stepfather of any wrongdoing.
Ms. Gregg, please rise and come to the podium, along with your attorneys. All right, the verdicts appear to be in proper form. Verdict of the jury is count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Please be seated, Ms. Gregg. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury is custom for the court to poll the jury. I have to do it each time. And for each count, I'm not being rude. The quickest way for me to get through this is to simply point at you and you answer out loud. As to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? You got to answer out loud, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yes.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? That verdict is proper and unanimous. As to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of attempted murder as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? As to count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in the indictment. Beginning on the first row, ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes,
sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is that your verdict?
Yes, sir.
On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? All right. All 3 verdicts appear to be unanimous. The court will enroll the verdict. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with you having returned a verdict of guilty in count 1 and count 2 of the indictment, we'll now proceed to the sentencing phase of the trial. State of Mississippi may call its first witness.
Your Honor, the state has no witnesses. We would just ask that the court adopt the previous testimony that the jurors have heard, with the exception of we seek to introduce one photograph.
All right. State wishes to move to adopt and incorporate by reference the record of the guilt phase. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Show your piece of evidence to the other side. Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Y'all approach. Does the state have any other witnesses it wishes to call?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, defense may call any witnesses.
We don't have any witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. With the defense not calling any witnesses, attorney's approach. Does the defense rest its case in chief as to sentencing?
We do.
Do you also move to adopt and incorporate by reference the record?
We do.
All right.
On September 20, 2024, Carly was found guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence, and she was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing her mother and the attempted murder of her stepfather.